from Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 and 24. It says, "Therefore, if you are offering a gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar, and first go and be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift." So, if you're thinking about the meditation, about this, perhaps we can even visualize that the altar is just a quiet place in our minds where we go, a place of prayer. That this instruction that Jesus is giving here is the instruction to, if you come there all stirred up about something, go back. Now, this doesn't mean that you actually have to leave and go out. You may, though. I mean, you may find that those turmoils in the mind actually require some kind of contact with the person that you're in conflict with. But more importantly, he's saying here, this must be released. In order for your prayer, your gift to be accepted, the problem, the issue, the grievance has to be released. Be reconciled with your brother, and then come back. And then that actually becomes a gift. If you forgive men when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. Now, this is a little bit different than what we usually talk about. There are a couple translations of this verse that are a little bit different than this, and what we would say is that your heavenly Father cannot forgive you, because you are holding, whatever you're holding against your brother, you're holding against yourself. Let me just read this poem. This is a Hafiz poem, and it's not short like most of them, but it's very good, and I think it'll really set the tone here. All your images of winter I see against your sky. I understand the wounds that have not healed in you. They exist because God and love have yet to become real enough to allow you to forgive the dream. You listen to an old alley song that brings your body pain. Now chain your ears to his pacing drum and flute. Fix your eyes upon the magnificent arch of his brow that supports and allows this universe to expand. Your hands, feet, and heart are wise and want to know the warmth of a perfect one's circle. A true saint is an earth in eternal spring, inside the veins of a petal on a blooming, rebudded tree, are hidden worlds where Hafiz sometimes resides. I will spread a Persian carpet there, woven with light. We can drink wine from a gourd I hollowed and dried on the roof of my house. I will bring bread I have kneaded that contains my own divine genes, and cheese from a calf I raised. My love for your master's touch is such that you can just lean back, and I will feed you this truth. Your wounds of love can only heal when you forgive the dream. So forgiveness. Forgive the dream. This is what we talk about almost every week, is this concept that we're living in an illusion. We're living in an illusion of our own creation. We're living in a dream. It's up to us to do something to awaken. There's all the help that we have need of within us, but it's up to us to wake up from the dream. And the way that we wake up from the dream is to forgive all the things that we find in the dream that distract us from love. In the Course, it says that the Course is not to teach the meaning of love, which is really beyond teaching, but rather to remove the blocks that keep us from remembering love. That's the same thing that Rumi said in the 1300s. Same exact thing. That this spiritual path we're on is to remove the blocks, and the blocks are all those things that we can't forgive. So forgiveness is seeing it differently, seeing the situation differently. If something, here, I've got something right here that perhaps will help us that I wrote last night. Forgiveness is a progressive learning experience. Once the journey has begun, you have unleashed a process that will inevitably bring you to the truth of who you are. There may seem any number of reasons that we are moved to begin the forgiveness process, but whatever their appearance, it is in response to an innate knowing that there is a peaceful and loving self that we have overlooked. So we begin by knowing that what is within us is this pure and loving spirit, that this is the essence of us. And then to realize that these other things that we think are us, we think are behaviors. In the meditation, we were talking about beliefs, thoughts, feelings, actions, and this is what we talked about last night. All those things, those are not us. Those are thoughts that we have that then lead to the actions. So, and we are not what we do, even though we are responsible for what we do. That's not us. We're not what we do for a living. We're not what we do for recreation. We're not what we do even when we are making errors. We're not what we do even when we're doing good things. We are pure and loving spirit. And what we do is a reflection of how well we are recognizing that we are pure and loving spirit. When we're not recognizing that, then our actions don't match up to that. So I remember I heard this such a gentle reprimand to someone one day in a meeting. She was swearing rather profusely in the meeting, and afterwards, quietly, our friend Ron went to her and said, "Listen, that doesn't match up to your spirit." Just very quietly, right? So, and the reason that he said it was not because sometimes, I got to tell you, sometimes in the meeting when people are swearing, it's funny. It's great. It's lovely. But sometimes you'll see that there are some who are offended, right? So someone was offended. Forgiveness is a journey that progresses through these levels of awareness. Think about the first thing, and we talked about this many times, that the first thing to recognize whenever we have an uncomfortable feeling is that idea of I'm responsible for how I'm feeling. And so I have to say to myself, and this is exactly what I say is, what are you getting upset about? You made all this up anyway. Now, I repeat this, I don't know, a couple times a month anyway, but it's, here, but it's really important that I understand that what's going on out there, what I think is going on out there, is a direct reflection of what's going on in here. So, again, I am not saying that I'm responsible for the stuff that happens. I'm not saying that I'm responsible for somebody else's behavior, but what I'm responsible for is how I'm perceiving it. What I'm responsible for is how I'm reacting to it. Because I can change my belief, I can change how I'm interpreting this thing that's happening. And this is true because you see people all the time. You will be in a situation where one person will get offended and another person will think that nothing happened. Well, what's the difference? The difference is how they took it. So if I take it as it's an offense against me, then I'm taking it in such a way that I want to cause myself suffering. I want to be a martyr. I want to be justifiably upset. I want to point out your shortcomings. So, but once I realize that I'm totally in control of this, then I can say I'll see it differently. Now, the surface way of seeing it differently is first, if someone offends me, I have to realize that in order for them to try to cause suffering, they must be suffering. Can't happen otherwise. And of course, what goes along with it is I have to realize that I was somewhat suffering, otherwise I wouldn't even have noticed that they tried to offend me. Because that's the difference between the guy that gets upset and the guy that doesn't. So once I understand and I ask myself the question, what are you getting upset about? Well, what I'm getting upset about is because I'm seeing something that's not there. I'm seeing some kind of behavior that is a threat to me. Now, this is really important too, is that it could actually be a threat to my physical body, what's happening. But I am pure and loving spirit. I am not a body. I am spirit. I mean, really, in eternity, I am spirit. So yeah, I'd rather that my body not be injured. It's unpleasant. But that's not really me. The real me is pure and loving spirit. And it's very interesting that once we start to identify more with spirit and less with the body, it's almost non-existent the times that will come when our bodies will actually be threatened. Because something shifts, something changes. When we identify ourselves with spirit, we stop having to be defensive, we stop having to be offensive, which they actually are interchangeable. So and I don't know if I want to tell that secret story or not. I don't know if you're ready for that particular story. You might have to tell somebody else. It's such a... So this traditionally accepted purpose of forgiveness is an attempt to overlook what someone has done to us. So I say, okay, so you do something and I say, oh, well, that's all right. See, now if I just go with the surface that you must be suffering, then that really still is a judgment against you. And I say, well, I'm going to let it go because I know you're suffering. That's not forgiveness. I'm really not even letting it go. If I say, well, I'm going to forgive you, but I'm not going to forget. That's not forgiveness. Because unless I really forget it, it's not real. Because it's there in my mind. Now I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. So I am not trying to say that what you did was okay. What I'm trying to say is you didn't do it. This is what I'm trying to say in my own mind. You didn't do it in reality. You seem to do it in this movie, in this illusion, which Hafiz in the poem was talking about, is this dream that we're in. I dreamed that you did this. Perhaps you dreamed that you did it to me. Maybe not. Maybe you thought something totally different, right? But it's a dream. The reality is, in spirit, it never happened. And that's where I want to bring my mind back to. So then, if I tell myself that I made this up anyway and try to get those things happening in my mind where I start to see these things from different perspective, then there's an opportunity to actually see what's really going on. I sent out the tweet this morning, there can only be two things. There's two ways of seeing things, from fear or from love. And the question is, what view do you prefer? Do you see the movie Life of Pi? If you haven't seen that movie, you got to watch that movie. You're excommunicated. Excommunication if you don't watch that movie. You watch the movie because he tells a story, and when he gets done at the end of the story, he asks the guy, he says, which story do you prefer? And this is really our choice. Our choice every day, every moment, is to decide which story do we prefer. Do we prefer the story that we are being set upon on all sides by events and circumstances, or do we prefer the story that we are pure and loving spirit and we can never be threatened? Do we prefer the story that we are separate bodies in conflict with other bodies, in competition with other bodies, or do we prefer the story that we are all one? And this is a choice that and we can say, well, wait, but this is reality. The reality is I'm a body sitting in a room, in a building, on a street, in a neighborhood, in a town, in a state, in a country, on a planet. That seems to be the reality. But all of that is just part of the dream that Hafiz was talking about. It's just part of the dream. And we are co-conspirers. We're co-conspirators in this dream of separateness. So I could say that's the reality. Look, this is what I deal with every day, and then that will be my experience. I will continue to have that experience. All I'm suggesting here is just try it the other way. Just start talking to yourself as if you're a spirit and not a body, and see what happens. See the change. So this forgiveness process, 3-step forgiveness